Guest of the day, Sri K. Chandrasekhar, and the key performer of the day, Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, former finance minister and our distinguished professor. The Navaratnas, that means the new batch of 9 PhD scholars, the 4th batch, and the 3rd batch of research capacity building program of GIFT. Of course, chair of the sessions, Dr. A.V. Jose. Friends of GIFT, I note the presence of Professor Ole Torngist over there. My colleagues, students and friends. It goes without saying that today is an important day for the Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation, because we are about to take one more step in accomplishing our mission of generating the next generation of social science scholars, particularly in the area of public finance. As you're aware, in this country, though we have got numerous fiscal related issues and financial related issues, one area where we are confronted with the serious deficit of scholarship. In fact, Professor K. Dr. Chandrasekhar was telling me right now, is in the area of public finance. And it goes again without saying, as our former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, India's higher education system or sector is, we see islands of excellence in the vast ocean of mediocrity. So there is a long way to go in improving the research process, particularly the process of PhD production in the country. What we are today faced with is just like water everywhere. There are PhDs everywhere, but how many of them have scholarship? We are GIFT, as our mandate goes, we are not necessarily in the process of producing PhDs, but we are in the process of producing scholars with PhD. And our idea of starting research capacity building along with the PhD program is our baby step in addressing this major problem that we are confronted with. So this orientation program, which will be followed by a foundation program, that will be followed by a rigorous coursework before the scholars enter into the process of writing their PhD. In this particular week-long orientation program, what we are trying to accomplish is providing an opportunity with the young scholars who have just entered Gulati Institute of Finance and Taxation through a competitive process. They are all very competent, students, scholars, and we are sure that we have excellent clay in our hand to mold, and we are trying to provide them an opportunity to interact with the scholars of eminence. And by interacting with them and learning from them, what is the process involved in the making of a scholar? What are the challenges? And what is the trajectory that they have went through? And what is the contribution that they have made? And today in this opening session of this orientation program, we have 3 eminent persons whom I know very personally, and you could not have got a better choice for today's opening this program. To begin with, we have Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, a student activist turned academician and professor of Center for Development Studies, turned parliament legislative assembly member, turned finance minister, who has, I would say, had the rather rare fortune of translating his ideas that he has acquired from his wide range of research, starting from labor movement, class struggle, cooperative sector, be it trade, be it traditional industries like coir and BD, and there is hardly any sector on Kerala economy which has not attracted his attention. And by realizing the fact that the problem that confronts Kerala economy is the lack of vibrancy in the productive sector, from his own research, he has spearheaded the decentralization process in the mid-90s. And in the recent past, based on his own understanding of the fact that Kerala's ambitious program cannot be accomplished in a national framework through the rigid FRBM framework, he started innovative measures like KIFBI, and again, with his own understanding of transforming Kerala, the need for transforming Kerala to take it to a higher development trajectory, he has initiated in his last budget, transforming Kerala to a knowledge economy. And here, my dear young scholars, you are, before us, we have a scholar who has also a practitioner and who has also a minister, and there cannot be a better person than him to tell you how you should be raising right questions for addressing the right research questions in your and what is the kind of challenges that you are going to face. Then I have with me, and then I have with me Sri K.M. Chandrasekhar. I would say a topmost bureaucrat of the country with 41 years of administrative service, of which 4 years as the topmost bureaucrat in the country, cabinet secretary, reporting directly to the prime minister, and that to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Ambassador of India to WTO, and the finance secretary of Kerala, revenue secretary at the national level, and chairman of the founding chairman of the Spices Board in the Ministry of Commerce, and the chairperson of Center for Development Studies, and Chidinal Institute of Science and Technology, and if I have to start, the furthers in his cap are too many, but the fact of the case is that you cannot get a better person. In his life, I am sure he would have sought the expertise of so many academicians by raising them right questions. What are the questions that you should be answering to formulate appropriate policy making? And at the other end, I have Dr. A.V. Jose, I would say the founding director of this institute, and also an academician turned UN bureaucrat. One of the pioneers in the area of labor studies, particularly agricultural wages and agriculture and employment, and working with, and I know his work from at the time of ARTUP in heading the ARTUP division Delhi, the way in which he has been working on export processing zones and other things. So here again, before you, a gamut of global expertise in working with a wide range of scholars all across the world. Dear friends, let us welcome all these three eminent personalities with a big applause for joining us. Now, I think the stars of the day are the Navaratnas, and I had an interaction with them, and I'm very confident that they are all having a right direction, and they are all highly competent, and we are here to help you out. But please remember, in the sphere of knowledge, supply doesn't create its own demand. If you are demanding, demand will create its own supply. If you raise right questions, it will be answered. So I understand that you all have the competence for that, and we are committed to accomplish your aspirations. With these words, I welcome the new batch of PhD scholars. Let me also welcome my RCBP participants. Many of them have joined, and they are They are joining our 60-hour research capacity building program from all different parts of the country. And I'm sure that you will be benefited from this joining this program. And I think Sri K.M. Chandrasekhar will be happy to know that a testimonial by one of the retired IES officers, Mr. Augustine Peter. He has participated last second batch of RCBP program, and he gave a highly remarkable testimonial. And this has been is presented in the video that is prepared by the coordinator of the program. Now, let me welcome the RCBP participants. Let me also welcome all the friends of GIFT who have joined for this program to help us, and they are in fact the true fuel that drives GIFT engine. And finally, and most importantly, all my colleagues, particularly the coordinators of the PhD program and the RCBP program, all of them have worked along with our senior PhD scholars to conducting the examination in short time, and all the work needed in that, locating the house for their accommodation, so on and so forth. With a lot of appreciation, on behalf of all of them, I welcome all of you to this program and request Dr. A.V. Jose to chair this meeting and conduct the proceeding. Over to you, Professor.
Professor Joseph, since in his welcome address, Professor Joseph has gone at length to introduce our distinguished guests to you, let me not go in for that. All the same, bring it to your attention that we have in our midst two outstanding public intellectuals of India, well versed in the theory and practice of development. Sri K.M. Chandrasekharan presided over the administrative structure of Indian Union at a very crucial phase in its economic evolution, the period of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's tenure. And that was the period which set the stage for amazing economic expansion of India. And one ought to recognize the role of these dedicated administrative personality of the public intellectuals who directed the course of the economy was extremely important for the future of India. And he is indeed the right person to release a very memorable work which has been done in recent times by another outstanding intellectual, policy executive of Kerala, and I hope of the whole country, because I've had the privilege of association with Dr. Isaac at crucial stages when he was preparing this volume, as a reader, as an admirer of his prodigious capacity for hard work and very readable output. More than that, there are two very distinct qualities about him which I admired. That he was the visionary who initiated pioneering, who development institutions, and that happened to be the time, I happened to be associated with him during the two tenures he held as the finance minister of Kerala, when he initiated important institutions. The Gulati Institute was one among them. And again, in running these institutions, the unique quality was that he never ever micromanaged. He never ever interfered in its running, left people to do the job. And that's a very precious lesson, which I think offers important lessons for all political executives in this country. Second, and still more important, Isaac initiated a most visionary program of public expenditure, where he really brought to the attention whatever the state has attained in the past, entirely premised on public spending, on infrastructure and social development, and embarked on a huge program for attaining these objectives. And his volume, which you will have an opportunity to interact with him, is essentially a write-up on how he is essentially providing a rationale for the programs he envisioned and started implementing. It goes at length describing the history of Kerala economy during the last 200 years, starting with agricultural development, expansion, starting with major tenurial developments in the Travancore region, expansion into commercial agriculture, its eventual transformation into agro-based industries, the kind of growth of a huge rural proletariat, rural urban proletariat, and more importantly, the kind of demographic dividend the state derived on account of a series of public policy or the social spending programs. They all cumulatively landed us in a different predicament. And here is a volume which lists the major challenges facing the economy. And then he also takes us to how on earth are we going to sort out? Here is a path for tackling them and arriving at faster growth, better employment, higher incomes, and an improved quality of living. And that exactly is the thrust of that volume. And I hope you will have an opportunity to debate with him its content and derive lessons that might help you to work on more issues pertinent to the development and financing of Kerala. Now, without taking more time, let me say, I would request Sri K.M. Chandrasekhar to release the book. Before that, he would certainly like to address you, explain his presence, and there onwards we will move to opening the volume, releasing the volume.
Thank you, Dr. Jose. Dr. Jose, chairman of the meeting. Dr. Thomas Isaac, former finance minister. Dr. Joseph, Dr. all the people present here. Dr. Parma Chakravarti, I find is PhD coordinator. Thank you for being here. She'll be giving the vote of thanks. And welcome to all the people who are present here today. Many of you are going to do your PhD and you're entering into a new area, I'm sure with a certain degree of trepidation. But as you will all know as we go along, this is going to be a kind of a sunrise area in the country in the future. Now I'm very happy to be here to release the book, the latest book produced by Dr. Thomas Isaac. He has written many. In fact, I have another role, another hat I wear as honorary advisor to the Aryavaidishala Kottakkal. And once in a while I find him once in a year. Now, when I go to his room, I invariably visit him if I happen to be there. I find he's supposed to be resting. I mean, that is why he goes there. But his whole bed, his whole room is all over strewed with paper. Plenty of paper, typewriter, his staff is there. And he told me that every time he goes to Kottakkal, he produces a book. So I don't know how many he has done, but each year you can expect one because he goes almost every year to Kottayam. So this is an interesting area which he has entered into this book. It traces the origin of the Kerala economy, political economy of Kerala from the beginning, from its roots to what it is today. Basically, if you look at Kerala in the early 20th century, I don't think there was any other part of the country which was ridden with so much of caste distinctions, societal division in such a way, nor was there a more rigorous kind of zamindari system, we could used to call it Janmi system, as in Kerala. So this was actually a ripe for introduction for the beginning of a strong leftist movement. And Dr. Thomas Isaac represents the growth of that entire way of thinking in Kerala. That changed. I think the leftist orientation was very important in the beginning, particularly because the focus shifted with the 1956 government of EMS Namboodiripad to certain other areas. It went to land reforms with the result that the Janmi culture disappeared and you had more of a middle class developing in Kerala. Then it focused on education. As a matter of fact, sometimes when we talk about public-private partnership and the orientation of the leftist movement towards that, I often say that the first public-private partnership was started in education in Kerala. The state agreed to meet the cost of the staff employed. The managements agreed to provide the infrastructure. So that was the first case. And I think it had a huge, much greater impact than we think on the future of Kerala. Because if the Gulf boom started, when the Gulf boom started in the 60s and later in the 70s, the most educated lot of people were from Kerala. We could take advantage of that. Now that has resulted in social change, as you can see. There is a huge middle class in Kerala now, big middle class, which is, I mean, they are getting money not only from their own service industries and other industries. There are huge amount of remittances is coming. According to an estimation which I read some time ago, the total remittance to Kerala is about 30% of its GSTP. It's not counted in the GSTP, it is outside the GSTP. So with the result that Kerala became a huge consumer economy, a very big consumer economy. But the industrial sector did not develop in the same manner to take advantage. Normally, if consumption goes up, production should also go up. But the production grew up outside Kerala. Instead, we focused on service industries. We focused on what is called the knowledge economy. That had considerable growth in Kerala. I mean, I've seen the change myself. In the 1990s, when I used to be here, I used to be finance secretary. I used to be, incidentally, as finance secretary, I also started this institution. The Center for Taxation Studies was started at my initiative when I was finance secretary. And it later became the Gulati Institute. And I'm happy to see that some of my colleagues who were there at that time are still here. That's a great thing. Now, from that time onwards, when in the 90s, when I used to travel to Ernakulam by train, I used to find that all the people who gave tea and coffee delivered on this, they were all Malayalis, hardcore Malayalis. When I came back in 2011, and after that, whenever I travel, I find I have to speak Hindi. I mean, they would prefer to hear Bengali and Nepali still. But what I'm saying is that two things have made a big difference. One, of course, is the growth of education. The second is the development of industrial infrastructure, which started with Technopark and is now spread out all over. These are areas where we really, I think I'm writing a book, I've written a book actually, which is going to be published shortly. I mean, I've said that these are the changes that have brought India into Kerala. And not only India, it has also brought Nepal, it's brought Bhutan, it's brought Bangladesh into Kerala. It's no longer the extremely bureaucratic city. Trivandrum is no longer the extremely bureaucratic city that I saw in the 70s when I first came here. It's now a cosmopolitan area. You hear many languages being spoken. So these are the changes that have taken place. Societal changes have taken place. The middle class has developed and consumption has grown. The chairman of Tata Sons, N. Chandrasekharan, was telling me some time ago that the highest sale of Tata cars is in Kerala. And I can understand why Dr. Thomas Isaac got, blocked because on the way here, because the number of cars is enormous. It's enormous, and each house seems to find it necessary to keep 2 or 3 cars. I don't know what probably they have a need for it, but it's become a kind of status symbol to have many cars now. So this is how Kerala has grown. And I do believe that the people of Kerala has shown a resilience, which is enormous in the sense that it's not only the people of Kerala, it's also the people of India. We first of all had a prolonged slowdown. Even before the pandemic, our rate of economic growth was coming down the last 2-3 years. The pandemic hit a further blow. But in spite of that, we are still able to find our way to recovery. If the pandemic hit us, suddenly industry moved from producing what they normally did to producing masks and sanitizers and so on. So that kind of resilience is there in the Indian economy. That is also there to be seen in the Kerala economy, where you find a number of startups developing and you find a number of medium, small scale industries developing. Here, today, I feel the government needs to focus on things like health, education, infrastructure. These are the areas where they should be focusing. The development aspects, the production aspects, the growth aspects, that will be taken care of by the people themselves, unless there are shocks. I mean, if you give them a sudden shock, like removing 86% of the currency of the country with 4 hours notice, now that kind of shock is going to affect certainly the resilience of the economy. Likewise, excessive regulatory and investigative action, which you see nowadays, that is again going to affect the economy because it is going to reduce confidence. You need confidence. The industry needs confidence, our people need confidence to go forward. So those are the things we need to really focus on. But I think this is an excellent book. I'm very happy to have been given the opportunity to release it today. And I look forward to, and we can certainly look forward to more work from this excellent scholar who has never stopped working. And even when he was finance minister, he continued to be a scholar. That's one of the great differences. In fact, I recall once we met together Mr. Arun Jaitley was there. He was then finance minister, and he was also defense minister for a period. So we met for a dinner at the Southern Air Command here in Trivandrum. And it was so interesting. We found that, I mean, the southernmost state of Kerala and the northernmost state of Jammu and Kashmir at that time, both had finance ministers with the same educational background. And we were actually planning a meeting where we'll have both and Mr. Arun Jaitley. But meanwhile, circumstances changed. Mr. Jaitley lost his life. The situation in Kashmir changed. And here also there were political changes. But what I'm saying is he's a man with a great background. And he has also got a great future ahead of him because he doesn't stop. He keeps on and on working and nothing stops him. So I wish him all the best in the future. And I thank you for writing. Thank you very much. I'll open it and give it now. I'm releasing it to whom? I'll give it to you or no, it's his book.
I'll take it.
So you will have to take it.
To say a few words on this great piece of work. And we are scheduled to, all of you, all of us can easily interact with him on the content of this volume. And there is time for that. And I trust we'll be able to do that. Raise questions about his view of the world as reflected in this volume. Dr. Isaac.
Respected K.M. Chandrasekhar, dear A.B. Jose, and Professor Ole, I hope you are still there online.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And dear friends, there is enormous interest, renewed interest on Kerala. Let me put it that way. For two reasons, recent events. One is the effectiveness with which Kerala tackled COVID. We have the lowest mortality, one of the lowest mortality in the world. Secondly, a left government has consecutively come to power. That's also a very rare event in the history of Kerala. So there is a lot of interest. So editor of Leftward, he commissioned a book. And his demands were, one, it should be short, maximum 150 pages, and it should be simple, readable, and there should be nothing that a non-Kerala cannot understand. It just be explanatory like that. Therefore, this book is deceptively simple. Because I have tried to put in all the insights on Kerala that I've gained in the last 5 decades of my association, scholarly association with Kerala development. The starting point is Kerala's development strategy. You are all aware of Kuznets curve. That's the traditional notion of relation between growth and welfare and inequality. As per capita income grows, inequality would widen till a point where it begins to decline. Now that is a standard treatment. But Kerala experience is different. Through social intervention in the development process, it has been possible to ensure a decent life and its basic needs to all the citizens at a low level of economic development. So that's a starting point. So I probe into how it is done. It's well known, the social provisioning of education and healthcare. It's a sort of redistribution. But I would add two more. Redistribution of income through collective bargaining, redistribution of assets through land reforms. So this redistributional strategy of development has had a positive impact upon welfare of the people. But when I joined CDS, this was just being explored. And very soon, a lot of people were saying the Kuznets is having a revenge on Kerala. Because 1970s proved to be a period where the economy was near zero growth. Agriculture, no growth at all. Didarna was smiling because he was the first one who stated, yeah, that's because very rapid change in the cropping pattern is taking place from food crops to long gestation, commercial crops. Therefore, there's a delay in the coming into production. So this is almost inevitable. Anyway, by 1987, things changed. But it took us till about 2000 to discover that Kerala entered a different trajectory of growth, accelerated growth from late 1980s. That's because the migration to the Gulf countries, remittances grew to about 30% of the Kerala GDP, which raised our consumption level, improved our savings, and accelerated the growth. So much so now, Kerala has the highest per capita income, not GDP, as per capita income. If you also add on to the per capita GDP possible first impact of remittances. So that's something remarkable. You have very high growth. Now, because Tyagarajan's unit, the finance minister Tamil Nadu, statement on comparing Tamil Nadu with Gujarat is going around. Very interesting remark he made. Okay, we have the same per capita income, but most girls go to school, better life for people in Tamil Nadu. Well, we have done even better. Okay, that's it. That's the first point. Then what's the problem? You're having growth, you're having welfare, so what's the problem? There are four problems. One, the second generation problems of education, healthcare, the quality has to improve because expectations of people have increased. Two, the productivity in small scale sector, agriculture, cottage industry, and so on, have stagnated, which has now become a barrier to improvement of the earnings of working people in these sectors. Now, for both these, now, and third, because of a focus on attention on social sectors, our capital expenditure has suffered. Therefore, there is a very serious infrastructure deficit. We are backward. Our trains and motor vehicles fly at half the speed of rest of India. Our industrial parks are of 1970s vintage. You don't have a transmission line about 220 kV. Your port Kochi cannot compete with Toothukudi and Mangalore, and so on and so forth. So how to overcome this? And finally, the fourth one. The economy does not produce quality jobs, which the educated unemployed expect. So we have very unacceptable level of educated unemployment, and as a result, women's participation in the economic activities have shrunk. So these are the four problems. Now today, the normal response would be to free up the markets, including the labor market, make an environment conducive for corporate investment, withdraw the government, and market will find the solution. Is there a left solution to it? That's the theme of the book. Regarding the first two challenges, the answer lies not in privatization, but in participation. So the framework for participation is laid down by democratic decentralization. An experiment was started in Kerala 25 years back. Now, if you look back the 25 years, it has been very encouraging in the social sectors, education, healthcare, service sector, but not so much in agriculture and small scale sectors. But that's the path, that much is clear. Second, how do you raise resources? So I think KIFBI has been fantastic financial innovation. Very simple model. You set aside a certain percentage of your revenue as an annuity for infrastructure. So you have an institution which will securitize this future flow of annuity, borrow today, and construct infrastructure. So this suggestion was I made in my 2011 budget. If it was followed up, then Kerala would have been different today. It had to wait till 2016 when I became once again the finance minister to pick up the thread. But for COVID, result would have been very different. But now it is picking up. Another 2-3 years, Kerala's infrastructure horizon will change. So now the fourth question, how do you create employment for education? Now this can be done only by changing the technological base of the economy into knowledge-intensive technologies, which will have high value addition and therefore can meet the remuneration expectations of the educated. Now, this transformation of the economic technology base would mean that Kerala transforms itself into a knowledge society. That it produces knowledge, not transmits existing knowledge to students, produces knowledge, which will become the basis for innovation and conversion into new products. Now, this is a huge task. I don't want to go to the details, but there is a vision to this. So this vision is something very different from the normal neoliberal paradigm of development. This is the book. So it has been based upon partly, I think, participatory policy making process. I've been fortunate in, to a great extent, both in decentralization, KIFBI, at least envisioning the new knowledge society. So this book will place this Kerala alternative, that something different is possible. There is a whole dictum, there is no alternative, starting with Thatcher, which everybody read, there is no alternative. So against this, the World Social Forum raised a slogan, another world is possible. That's why I have titled the book, Kerala, Another Possible World. It's not realized, but there is that possibility. A dream which can be fought for, struggled for. And that's the book about. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Isaac. Let me say, we have the next item in our agenda is word of thanks for this session, this particular session. We will have Dr. Paroma Chakravarti. She will do that. And the idea was originally that we would have coffee outside, but it looks as though it's being served inside. Therefore, after Paroma's word of thanks, we will proceed to the next item, that is interaction with Dr. Thomas Isaac.
May I think, Dr. Jose,
All right, Joseph. I mean, you know,
yeah, the tea is served inside doesn't mean that people should be asked to sit continuously for 12:45. I think interaction with Professor Isaac might be bit prolonged until lunch. It will be because you know, I think his MPhil grade in CDS is not yet crossed by anyone. That's why I understand. So he will have a lot to say to the scholars how to work like how he works. So I would say that I also want to say one more thing. These two eminent personalities who came, I had the great privilege of working with them directly. Sri K.M. Chandrasekhar was the chairperson of the research program which I have been coordinating. And I had the great privilege of working with Professor Isaac as my chairman. So I want perhaps before breaking, Professor KMC also would like, Dr. KMC also would like to tell a few words to our new young generation, I mean the Navaratnas I call, and also our RCBP participants. As a scholar, you know, you are kind of, I appreciate. Anyway, no, Professor Isaac will be interacting if, apart from the book release. Otherwise, we'll have to stay back. I think we'll have to go, I suppose.
Professor Olim, I'll be greatly honored if you could start with your criticism after the break.
Ole will be coming later for interaction also.
You want me to say something to scholars?
To our scholars, because I know how you used to raise questions to me, you know, what kind of research to be doing in plantation, you know, I let, you know, the current context, if
I have always held the view, I think we should, you are a coming generation and the future really belongs to you. And I think India is going to change. I have no doubt about it. You see, one thing which I have been breaking my head about, which I've been writing a great deal about, and which I've been talking a great deal about, is the low level of R&D spending in India and the low level of spending that we have on our PhD programs and our PhD scholars. Now, if this country is really to catch up, we can be doing work, we can do work which other countries are doing, we can do some little technologies here and there. But what Dr. Thomas Isaac said also, I think that knowledge economy is very, very important. Now, I have been reading a lot on this. And if you look at, say, China, for example, the amount that they are investing, they are spending something like 2.5% of their GDP, which is much bigger than us, on real scholarship on R&D. We have been saying 0.5, we have been hovering around 0.6 to 0.7% for the last many years. In every manifesto you will find, every political party will say we'll raise it to 2%, but nothing really happens. But I don't think this is going to be really what's going to happen in the future, because people are going to understand the importance of learning. The people are going to understand the learning of innovation. And this happens both in the scientific and industrial field, as well as in the scholarship field. I mean, I think economics is a very, very major area of focus. And the contribution you can make even to corporate industry through economic analysis is significant. I mean, I am associated with several corporates today. And I can tell you that we are all of us need to look at the future. Where are we going? Where is the global situation changing? And this is the kind of study that you people have to do and provide. So I'm sure that even the corporates are going to take increasing interest in this. The other thing which I told Dr. Narayana today morning, you see, a scholar never retires. A government servant like me can retire, but a scholar never retires. Dr. Isaac will not retire. He'll be doing something or the other. Dr. Narayana will not retire. Dr. Joseph will not retire. You'll be keeping on. There are enough projects to keep you going throughout. But what is required of you is intense focus on what you're doing, developing interest in what you are doing, and making changes, studying, you can go abroad. There are plenty of opportunities to go abroad, to interact with people, and to get more learning and more avenues where you can really develop. But the opportunities are there, the money is also there, and the future is there. So I think research provides a huge opportunity, but unfortunately, what we have seen here in Kerala and many other parts of India, they do their schooling, they even get a PhD from somewhere or the other. But then they stop learning. If you stop learning and you only teach some graduate courses and so on, with your learning of what you acquired 20 or 30 years ago, then that's not scholarship. That is teaching, not scholarship. If you want to be scholars, if you really want to grow, then I don't think there is any better avenue open to you than this. So I would request you to see this as a first step in a process which will last lifelong. And I hope you will all become great scholars, respected all over the world in the years to come. So is that okay, Dr. Joseph? Did you want me to say anything?
I think, thank you very much. I think this is the this also you rightly said it, because academician never retires. Look at Professor Isaac is in the process of producing a few more. I mean, every year he produces at least 3-4 books. So this is what differentiate an ordinary college teacher, or he's having a PhD, from a scholar. This is, I think, you rightly said it. And also, I just want to make one more point when you said about opportunities. See, our finance minister was supposedly here. We scheduled 22nd, considering his convenience. But because of the assembly session, he couldn't join today. And the present chairman and the finance minister, like the previous, he is all out support. Both of them are all out support for the PhD scholars here. Dr. Isaac and both of them have the same tradition, perhaps the SFI leadership. And when we want to raise the fellowship to 20,000 this year, he immediately agreed. So we have, and the chairman will be coming and formally inaugurating the program. In one of these days, I told him that this 1 week, this session is going on. Honorable Finance Minister and chairman will be coming and formally doing it. This is for the information of the scholars. So now I think with the formal vote of thanks, I think you can ask Professor Isaac to reply directly.
Immediately after this session.
If you're okay with
Also want to take a break, are free to take a walkabout. But we'll continue the discussion. I think.
Okay, then let's proceed with the interactive session.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to facilitate. Should Sri Chandrasekhar like to be? I mean, I could make it possible. But then, since he is keen on being part of this debate, let's go ahead with the interactive session, which means we are going to raise questions. You are all going to raise questions with Dr. Isaac, and he had initially suggested that if Dr. Olin is willing, he could come up with questions. Should it not be possible, the floor is open. And if he is not there, Joseph, you have the chance if you would like to raise questions. If not,
Ole is there.
Ole is there. Yes, please. Please, Professor Ole, you can. Would you like to raise questions with Dr. Isaac at this juncture, or would you like to come afterwards?
Well, that's really up to you. I woke up very early this morning to be able to listen to Isaac, not to contribute so much. But since you ask, and I have read the book very closely. It's here with me, and I find it very, very productive because it brings together so many bits and pieces of a remarkable achievement of the progressives in Kerala and not least Isaac himself, and how all these ideas have been put in practice. That's the most remarkable, of course, how you, Thomas, combines these visions, these strategic perspectives, with also getting them implemented. The first and most remarkable thing about the book is that it, I think, shows very clearly the importance of spelling out transformative reforms of like beginning in the 1994 Kerala conference, where you gained almost hegemony by all the proposals from the people who've been participating in the civil society campaigns, and then put them together or bringing them together and getting a very prominent importance and building up for generalizing the People's Planning Campaign. That was remarkable. And I think, therefore, the book is brilliant, and how you continue that later on. I think the book is brilliant in the sense that it shows it's possible to advance by spelling out frameworks for transformative reforms, and get people and build alliances behind these reform proposals, these broad reform proposals. That's brilliant. Now, there are two questions though, as always. And the first thing that people, and myself, but first thing that people always keep asking me is that, okay, brilliant, people did this in Kerala and so on, but we don't really understand how it was made politically possible. That is, you know, it's the book keeps on being primarily a piece of political economy and focused on reforms, but it's less emphasizing the politics, the political implementation of all these things, and that I think we need to keep on asking and keep on spelling out. And if you have any comments on that, that would be lovely. The second question, of course, is the question of governance. How is governance supposed to be organized? There was a framework for the decentralized planning. I'm less sure about the new emphasis on knowledge-based development. How the governance of it is really going to be spelled out and organized. If we look back into international experiences like the way back in time, the New Deal, Roosevelt's New Deal, the emphasis after the Second World War when the social democratic broader framework in Europe was there. There were frameworks for governance, not least based on cooperation between strong unions and employers' organizations, but that is difficult to replicate in the context of Kerala. How should it be? How should it be done? So those are my two questions. If you want me to be a bit naughty, with the first question, I could say, you know, you spell it out as if it was the CPIM who really implemented most of these remarkable ideas from the very onset. But we know that there were so many people active in civil society pushing the party, pushing the politicians to do it, and we need to spell that out, I think, a bit more clearly for people who would like to follow similar paths. I could add perhaps a final note on why I think all the work that you have done and so many people with you, the importance of it, which is that when there are now other examples coming up, like in Chile and Colombia with Boric's election as president in Chile and Petro in Colombia and so on, there is a need to internationalize this discussion. Let it not just be in Kerala, and let GIFT try to foster an international discussion on those matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Olla.
Yes.
And we have the option. Dr. Isaac, would you like to
Yes.
respond to individual questions
or
pick them on together?
Professor Ole has always attempted to give an international perspective to what is being done in Kerala. He has always studied in Kerala in comparative perspective with other countries, the social democracies in the West or other Asian countries' experiments. I have not done that. But definitely, your second question, there are a number of experiments, democratic experiments going on. Now the new pink tide in the Latin America, raises a lot of expectations about set other democratic experiments. In fact, it is in that context that what is being done in Kerala become very relevant. If you look at the common minimum program, if you can call it, all this liberal left governments that are coming up in Latin America, the agenda is very similar to what is being done in Kerala, but for the anti-American stand. No, Kerala also is anti-Americanism, but that is a very central to the agenda of Latin America, like education, healthcare, social security, land reforms, and so on. There are so many common elements. And I think it is also important to look at the experience of social democracies in the West, gains of which are being undermined the last 5 decades of neoliberalism. Now, how does Kerala become a possible another world, a possible alternative? I said about 4 challenges. The standard response to these challenges would be neoliberal. Government doesn't have money for improving the quality of education and healthcare. For example, the data in the book shows the expenditure on these sectors to GDP of Kerala is lower today than what other states in India spend. It will be very surprising result. So what is the solution? The solution would lie, government doesn't have money, therefore you privatize healthcare, education. There would be some inequality that would arise, but that is inevitable. But instead, Kerala has deliberately chosen decentralized participation in the improvement of quality of education and healthcare. That's the alternative, which has had a positive impact. The percentage of people using public health facilities have increased from 38% to 48% on the eve of COVID. The number of students in the public schools have steadily improved. According to Niti Aayog Index, Kerala's school system is the best in the country, not Delhi, Kerala. Okay, that's it. Now take agriculture on a small scale. Agriculture today, the second green revolution of India is going to be led by corporates. That's the whole idea. And that's why they're undermining minimum support price, extension work, priority credit, everything. But the corporatization would take care of it. You sign a contract with a corporate, they would provide all this. So instead of that, you have local communities of farmers and agriculture workers planning locally on a watershed basis, trying to improve the productivity and have value addition of the agriculture products. That's the alternative. I already mentioned about how do you build infrastructure? You open it up to corporates. They will borrow money and they will invest. They will have to have a user fee. You have models by which infrastructure construction becomes remunerative. Okay. Now, that's very difficult in Kerala. You can't put user fee on education, healthcare, and so on. And because of density and rural-like growth of a settlement pattern along the roads, it's impossible to have a toll-based construction of, say, our state highways or major district roads. It's impossible. You can't have service roads. And speaking as an economist, there is absolutely no macroeconomic difference between corporate borrowing and investing in infrastructure and a body corporate borrowing and investing in infrastructure. What is the difference macroeconomic impact? Therefore, we, instead of corporatization, we have a body corporate, KIFB, which will borrow and construct. Now, once again, we don't say no to corporate, say in the creation of new job opportunities in Kerala, for promotion of core sectors where we have more competent, like knowledge industries, service industries, skill-based industries. But in case they don't come, well, then the fallback option is you raise a new generation of entrepreneurs, startups. Even if their companies don't come, have a plan through skilling process to utilize the new job opportunities in the gig economy in the West. You work from home in Kerala, skilling them. So you are not getting out of world system, you are inside the world system. Still at the same time, you are ensuring a more democratic process of development. That's my response to the question. Now, I think this is part of a methodology course. And therefore, when you raise just not on more information on Kerala, but as a scholar, the whole approach to study, research, the experience, at least 3-4 of us are here who share their experience at Center for Development Studies. So you can ask any one of those questions also. Needn't be about the book. Yes.
I think I will start. I think Professor Isaac.
Yes.
I think what our new scholars particularly will be interested in is, you are a very familiar person to all of them. And based on what is talked about, you are in a sense, in all sense, an academician's pride and politician's envy, which is not an easy accomplishment. At least the young generation would like, on the basis of what Sri Chandrasekhar said, they have huge opportunities. Now, taking from your trajectory, what was the process involved in the making of an academician, Dr. Isaac? What is the process? And what was your great contribution as an academician? Forget about minister. What is the trajectory? And what are the ingredients of making that for them? What are your advice to them?
Joseph, you are asking me to be autobiographical.
No. Almost like that. You will write later. I know you will write later. Slowly, please.
There's always been this tension between academics and activism in my career. In fact, as a full-time student activist while doing my MA, you can imagine what is impact upon your studies. I studied in a college in Kochi. Well, to sum up that education that we were having, I, for the first time, saw an academic journal only after coming to CDS. Let alone reading it. You know, had any academic journal or department, or reading original books. Just out of question, you see. Of course, you had samples and all the USIS had donated a large number of copies, but otherwise, it's based upon teachers' notes and so on. The best thing that CDS gave was, it gave us an experience of what it means to be academic. The joy of study, learning. I think the best experience is to sit in the tower, the library, with the books. Even if you don't read all the books, I think it gives you the whole body of knowledge and makes you feel a little humble that you haven't read all this. Another great experience was that I don't know how we can create that in GIF. At that time, very eminent scholars were the seniors, professors, starting with the Dr. Raj. And, so. And therefore, people like John Robinson used to come. She used to teach us a course. She comes in December, the winter in Europe. And when John Robinson comes, the whole army, followers, the left Keynesians from all over, would listen to CDS. And that was a great experience to listen to these people, not participate in discussion and so on. I remember the lunch table, they would be sitting, we'll pull a chair nearby table so that we can listen to what the discussion that goes on. You may not understand everything, the sparks come, you get excited. And so therefore, automatically you are inspired to read. At that time, there were also, Mihir Shah was running a study circle to read Marx and so on. So you read much beyond what is required for your term paper. And I think for the first time I was reading original economic texts. And the intensity of reading has done me good. When in my later political policy activities, it gives such a firm grounding. You have a framework to look at the policy issues in a consistent framework. But you know how to look up more information. Great thing was, there was Professor Vaidyanathan, who was a great data churner. He knew everything about data source of Indian economy. So you work with him, by the end of your course, you become an expert on all data source of Indian economy, census, that, this, the limitations and so on, which later is, when you say read something, you understand the limitations of it immediately. So this period where I did my MPhil and PhD, well, the intense reading, interaction with the senior scholars used to come. I live on the interest of the fixed deposit made in that period. If it was just reading and preparing for my PhD, well, I would have had a PhD degree anyway, but that would have been the end of it. So I think it is very important that while pursuing your topic of your thesis, we read, our horizons are much larger. The objective should not be just taking a degree alone, but your own PhD pursuit would become much more richer by your reading. So later, I left CDS, a full-time academic thing, because I got an opportunity to design and implement the decentralized planning in Kerala. So it was a mass movement, About 40% of the plan was going to be given outright grant to local governments. So you're playing with not small money, with big money. And the local governments have to prepare the plan. And prepare the plan in a participatory way, in a new way. It has to be documented. It is not schemes they're implementing. They are implementing projects. Schemes are given from above on a same pattern throughout the state, but here, each local government is preparing hundreds of independent projects. So I don't think there is any parallel anywhere in the world for a whole region studying planning from the ABC of it. It took more than a year, 7 rounds of training, cascading, about 500 at the state level, 10,000 at district level, 100,000 at the local level, 7 rounds. And the plan was prepared. And now that has been so successful that the last 25 years they've been preparing plan. Now, I have always wondered how this could have been done like this. There was a hitch or anything. I don't think we had clear scheme, everything done, what should be done. In fact, initially when we started, the whole understanding was 1 week's training to begin with, and that should do it, then should go forward. Then we realized before every step of the planning process, you need to have this training program. Training program means about 7, 8 rounds of training program, handbooks, this, that, everything had to be ready, you see. Is then I realized that we didn't learn. You didn't hesitate. You just rolled. You had a smooth ride from the beginning to the end. And that's because, one, CDS had a very important tradition in decentralized planning. The first working paper of CDS was about decentralized planning by Dr. Raj, Indian experience. And then there were, in fact, I don't think any other time in the life of Dr. Raj or Gulati, Krishnaji, yes, even before that, yes, in politics, they have participated in a dharna in front of the secretariat, other than for decentralization. That Kerala government was delaying the whole program, and Raj, all people came to. I think that's first time, last time they participated. So this academic background did help tremendously. Just not academic background. CDS at that time encouraged everybody to get involved in actual activities outside, like KSSP, local development experiments. You had program for community organization. Yeah, John Kurian was picked up precisely because John Kurian came to sell fish in CDS. That's what John told me one day. Because the cooperative had to sell.
Marine Nut.
Yeah, they came to see it, then met Raj. So there was this interaction between the academic work that we were doing, and not political directly, but a lot of other social developmental activities taking place. It didn't detract you from your academic pursuit, only reinforced each other. So I think, what should be the unique character of a gift? Now you are all back to gift. I think gift, the student, of course, must become scholars, not just taking degree, as Joseph said. But also there must be an element of policy orientation. Yes, you'll be linking what you are studying with what actually is going on in the state in various ways. That will only enrich in your scholarship, having this policy orientation. Joseph, am I answering?
Yeah, he seems to be. Joseph, shall we?
No, you are answering it very well. I think a couple of points I'm picking up on your behalf. One, the capital that you made during the PhD, and you are living on the interest of it. And a PhD scholar should be able to make capital. If you don't make capital, you won't be having any interest to live on. And you are saying about the conceptual framework and the database. The students should be exposed to varied, that's for me, you are advising me, in fact, saying that students should be exposed to different conceptual frameworks or analytical framework so that they can choose from and expose them to database to test. And you have done it incredibly well, sir. I think, thank you very much. I think there will be other questions. I have many other questions I noted down from your this thing.
Jones was going to ask something.
No, I would, but then let me say, those of you from among the students, in case if you have queries to raise, please raise your hand. I will note that and come back to you. But then let me come to Dr. Isaac. He raised two central issues: job creation, knowledge creation. Knowledge creation, we have had an opportunity to go in for an extended autobiographical discussion, saying that the focus should be on enhancing the quality of knowledge and that we should shift greatly to knowledge generation, which is research based. But then let me also say, I'm not entirely an admirer of that magic wand theory. Professor Raj came like in a fairy tale, waved his magic wand, and there was a research culture generated in Kerala. Far from that. The stage was set for that. There was a gradual process of evolution in a predominantly teaching-oriented structure. We were generating degrees for people to station themselves in global value chains. We had heavily invested, but moving into social science research and also in scientific fields was essentially the work of visionary political leaders. I would mention Dr. Isaac's predecessor in that field, Sri Achyuthamenon, who played a pioneering role in setting up these institutions. The point I'm trying to highlight is that the focus should be on a concerted effort to generate new knowledge and propagate it. And these are the kind of institutions where you can raise queries, questions, gained from the kind of wisdom generated already, learn from their experience, equip yourself to ask pertinent questions and constantly get into the search for meaningful answers. And that's the kind of role I hope Gulati Institute will play. But then one more query, DN, I'll come to you. One more. You said about job creation. Agree. But then like an average politician would ask you, should it be here? Because that is the concern they all raise. The state with the highest unemployment rate, lowest participation of women. What employment creation are we talking about? We don't have a history of creating jobs. All the same, let me say, we have been supplying manpower to the global markets of a particular skill composition. We have been moved beyond that. Specialized knowledge creation was not necessarily in our agenda. And that's what the new science-based institutions also be looking at. The point is, as he raised, since we focused on education and healthcare and the quality of living, we certainly lack the kind of resources to generate infrastructural investment. And that's exactly which stood in the way of job creation. And even then, let me say, let's not be all that ambitious, saying that jobs should be created here and only here. Our role is to become a knowledge producing center. I would raise that point to Isaac
So
also.
before
See
we
if he
move to
agreed.
D. Narayanan, let me briefly respond to what you said. I have no disagreement.
No, I've got one more question about what you raised recently, that we don't have an entrepreneurial culture in Kerala. Something which was picked up by our friends in the academia. I stand by you.
Okay.
I endorse your position that we certainly did not have an entrepreneurial caste in Kerala. But then, when our friends raised this issue, we have had plenty of entrepreneurs in recent times. That's a different set of issues. But then I think it's important to learn that at crucial points in our history, there have always been entrepreneurs who cater to the needs of the economy. It's not necessarily, but I mean, the absence of a caste did matter. And I would raise that too with him so that he can respond.
Okay.
And
then
DN wanted to raise the point. So you have got three.
Okay. The first point, I agree with you. I know difference of opinion on that. It was not any individual, but the whole environment that was created at Center for Developer Studies. The stage was set for that. This is the first time that in social science that a major institute was being set up. And Kerala needed that. And a string of new centers came up. Center for Developer Studies, Sri Thiruthirunal Institute, Center for Earth Science Studies, Forest Institute, CWDM, and so on. If you look at each of them, what Chidambaram did was, he selected the best mind in that area, gave him total freedom, total autonomy to set up, select, and draw the design that institute and so on. And it was made best use of in centers like CDS. And there is a whole environment. The environment involved people like Raj, who set certain standards for emulation. You aspire to be like them. Okay. And who taught you not just how to use data, interpret data, encourage you to read much beyond your time paper level, and so on. So that, and also the scholars used to come in CDS. That set the atmosphere so that people like me who never had any academic tradition more than A, now felt, I mean, I think it was a very transformative period. That's what. And that discipline, academics involve certain discipline. Okay. Now, what happens with the political activities, there is no, that discipline is not there here. You have problems copying up every day, you run around addressing them. But academics, you have to pursue that with certain intellectual discipline. So that discipline is very important for later period also. Okay, I have 1 year was a minister running around, then you go to Kottakkal, I take a 1.5 months. So when he came, I was writing this book on Uralangal Labor Contract Society, the largest cooperative, construction cooperative in India. So they had 100 years of the minutes book, account book, everything in my, it's a big room, but strewn all around. And that even Dr. Warrior was, I think, slightly upset seeing that. But it is that intellectual discipline that you imbibe enables you to shift into academics in this manner. Okay, you have been there now, sit down with the books, the data, and so on. You do it. That was very, very important. Anyways, the whole environment, I have no difference with that. Second one is that how do you create employment? Do you need to create employment here? See, you need to create minimum employment here. You cannot be totally dependent outside. That brings in certain level of uncertainty into the whole economy. Say now, Kerala has been doing good. People have been going to Gulf and other countries, sending remittances. We have been growing fastest. But let's get Democratic sword, you see. You have COVID situation, people returning from Gulf, then you're in crisis. Only reason Kerala has not collapsed, Kerala economic collapse, I will say, is that the huge infrastructure in stimulus package that is being implemented. Take this national highway, 4 lane, 6 lane, 25,000 crores of rupees has been given this last year and this year as value for land. You're pumping in 25,000 crores of rupees into the economy here. I'm not saying about construction and so on, just value of land. That creates certain stimulus. So it is very important that Kerala creates a minimum level of say industrial service employment within Kerala. But that doesn't require Kerala, the industries, companies coming to Kerala or rebuilding them. In today's the employment, world employment, working from home, working near home is becoming more and more important. Before the last budget of mine, we had at least about 2 weeks of 3 weeks of intense interaction with a lot of professionals. And the assessment was that at least the global economy with another decade of 1 decade or a half, there would be at least 20 crores of technical people working from home. Currently, it is only about 2 to 3 crores. Before COVID, it was only about 50,000. Now, the challenge is, can you skill? Now, there are 20 lakh educated women staying at home as homemakers. 20 lakh. They are all graduates, postgraduates. One, they have to make them computer literate. They have got degree before a year in the computer era. Maybe 6 months or even a year, their academic degree should be, that knowledge should be possible to be used in a digital form. That may take half an year, 1 year of training. Now, it's not general skill training as a whole. You search what are the demands for skill demand in the global economy. How do you search that? Malayalis are there at the senior level in all over the world. If we have regional groups of that, that's what Law Kerala Sabha provides. That you set, these are the new employment opportunities that would come. And then have them skill here. And government provides intermediation. It provides skilling, it provides social security, if necessary support for working from home. It should be possible to employ them here. Companies need income. I'll give you a simple example. COVID, the brand name of Kerala, is very good in health. Now, with Brexit, a lot of nurses have left Britain. So they wanted 2,000 nurses. But what is the skill requirement? Not they are proficient in nursing, but also they speak English with a proper British accent. So you sign a contract with the British Council, they provide online English language skill training. And I think many people I know personally, I don't know how many have gone. Many people have called up to, some people have called up and thanked me because I was the one who at the time took initiative for that. See, this is possible. So much so, whether it be working in a company here or working in a company outside or working for a company outside here in Kerala, employment should rise. Because if there is no such solution for the unemployment, then your political position becomes untenable. It cannot be indefinitely postponed, this agenda. And third one, regarding the entrepreneurial thing. Now, there is a whole lot of mud thrown on workers' organization, trade unions, their response for deindustrialization of Kerala, etc. Simple answer is, Mumbai was the cradle of trade union movement, but it's also industrial center. the management, that's what management is about. Okay, you have a workforce that demands differently, then you meet that challenge. In this respect, Kerala has no entrepreneurial tradition like in Gujarat and Calcutta. And so we started on this inquiry on the basis of a statement by Dr. Raj made in 1960 in Delhi. His talk on Kerala, there is this. But by my statement given to interview in Indian Express, have been twisted to say that there is no entrepreneurial thing in Kerala at all. No. In fact, we have a paper, Michael and me, Historical Roots of Entrepreneurship in Kerala, where we have gone at length to document how a new, say, trading capitalist class developed, how they put pressure on the state government to change policies, where in 1930s, listen to that, 1930s, one K.C. Karnagaran, prominent kayar industrialist, but briefly educated abroad also, but I don't think he would have heard of Keynes at that time. In Germany even, I don't think Keynes was there. But he was every year in the budget, he would demand that government stop parking the surplus in the budget in sterling securities, spend it here, have a deficit. So I was, this shows a kind of maturity in thinking, at least intellectually, of a new entrepreneurial class. But if you take the whole development, industrial development process in Kerala, their contribution has been minimal. The whole new industries which came up in the end of 1930s came from Tamil Chettiar capital. They were the industries. Our friends here, they were more interested in trade, plantation, commercial agriculture, which is expanding fast. All the say banks in central Travancore were financing the investment in commercial agriculture. And when independence came, two things happened. The plantation foreign capital began to withdraw, and plantation was expanding very fast. Second, the Western coastal trading firms, European trading firms, had total monopoly in foreign trade. They withdrew. So our moneyed people just moved into this trading companies, commercial plantation, etc. There is total vacuum in industrial development. This is the dialectics of this development. So instead of that, you make a simplistic vulgarization of the statement made, then you go on to demolish it in Facebook posts after one another. These are interesting, all our friends. But I have not replied. I should. Yeah, I should. I will. I have said, let them complete the post, then I will take the one. Yes.
DN, would you like to? Yes, please.
No, I want to go back to the CDS environment. There are 2 points that I would like to make, rather supplement your better thing. It's not only Joan Robinson. In fact, we used to have a galaxy of visitors, all the top names in economics. You know, mostly, of course, the Indian names, you know, Amit Baduri, Deepak Nair, Amresh Bagchi. You know, you name the Indian economists, they were in CDS giving lectures. And anybody could attend those lectures. That was the beauty of it. Not like these days. You want to enter the CDS gate, I think you have to take a permission. Those days it was not like that. We could walk into the classes of these grades. And that made a very, very important difference. So a lot of people could learn many things, the perspectives. That I think was a great learning experience, which I don't think any of the Kerala colleges had, or even other institutes had. That was a, so that's why
even the range of topics on which research was done. If you look at those working papers of those days, it's an unimaginable sort of a range, because we had these people coming and talking from very different perspectives. Now, it also had another very, very important impact. That is, these working papers, they were eagerly waited for by the local journalists. In fact, they would quickly pick the findings of these working papers, and it would be material for articles in the local vernacular newspapers. So CDS very quickly became almost a household name sort of a thing in Kerala, which I don't think other institutes had. That's one very, very important sort of a development. There is another sort of which I will be using some of it in my lectures here. That is a brand of economics. This is basically what I picked from Professor Raj. He used to say, if you really want to understand the social processes, there are three things: history, theory, data. That is a great perspective. That sets apart the economics that was done during those days. History, theory, and data. And Dr. Isaac was mentioning about Vaidyanathan. Data, almost anything, we used to fondly call him Vaidi. And Vaidi would say, no, Narada, you cannot do this, because this data doesn't help you to do that. That was the beauty of the sort of a thing. And this had another very important impact. The MPhils who came out of the CDS, many ended up in journalism. And in the process, the economic journalism that was done in India, not just Kerala, in India, underwent a huge transformation. If I am right, before that, if you can write well in English, you have an article. But once these MPhils started entering journalism, you have to have numbers. You have to have a bit of theory. I think that was a transformation that the economic newspapers had those days. And I think CDS contributed greatly, CDS MPhil, because every year 10, 12 used to come out. And at least 50% used to end up in, as journalists. And that, correct me, Chandrasekhar, if I'm wrong, because you probably, you see, that was a great sort of a thing. So it was a great learning experience. And I wish, we are able to transform GIFT into that sort of a thing, especially in the current context. Thank you.
Same, it is important, the students. Okay, when you start working on a project, you will have some framework. But and be sure you need to have a framework. But do not think that is the only framework possible. Research is about looking at alternative ways of looking at the same phenomena. For example, Narayana's supervisor was Sanjit Bose. So Sanjit Bose was one of the greatest econometricians. But by the time he came to CDS, he had a critique of econometrics, how not to use it. He never used econometrics. He was, in fact, more into philosophy, underlining his statements. Okay, you had Krishnaji. His all his earlier works have been in econometric and so on, statistical journals. But by the time he came to CDS, he never did any regression fitting, unless there is a reason for that, unless there is a theory by which says that these variables are relevant and this. Otherwise, you can fit any regression. Now that you have computer, you go on looking at various alternatives and choose the best fit. No. So these, I think, are two extreme cases where They are very well seasoned statisticians on their own, but who chose no, we are going to look at it in a different way. So I think it's important when you start your work, yes, you have your framework, but at the same time, keep your mind open to alternative ways of looking at the phenomenon.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Anyway, but then let me also warn you, you're going to have more of it because nostalgic reminiscences of CDS is almost becoming genetically embedded in the mindset of a lot of academics in India. Therefore, it's good fun. You're going to have more of it. A lot of them, a whole range of distinguished scholars are coming to talk to you about their experience, and invariably you will have to put up with them, bear with them on this CDS factor. But then, let me say, Kiran, is there anyone who would like to raise a question? I mean, from among the faculty members? Okay, Dr. Chan, sorry, Anu, before coming to you, let me give it to the chair. Would you mind?
Okay, now
to
this
Sri
is
Chandrasekhar.
only an issue which I thought I will raise here. Dr. Isaac will probably not agree, and maybe a large majority of you might not agree. But I think just the way we developed tourism, just the way we have developed the health sector with a combination of private and public initiative. Now, in the field of education, we have partly done it and very badly done it, in my view, particularly in the technical field. There are a number of engineering institutions, they are making money, they're going away. Why should we not have really good institutions within Kerala? I think there is enormous scope. Number of our students are going out to other universities outside Kerala. They're studying there and they're developing. I mean, I agree with Dr. Isaac's view that providing employment need not necessarily be localized in one area. It can be so long as our people get employment. But what I do feel is that even, international universities, even places like Stanford, Cambridge, Oxford, etc., would be interested in setting up establishment in Kerala. There are a number of private universities all over the country today. And we have a number of our students also studying there, doing research. Now, the advantage that I see is, one, they provide a certain level of education. They get the best scholars. So all these research scholars that are here, now they will be very much in demand in the future if we develop education in the same way. And if they are paid higher than what is received in the public sector, then the automatic tendency would be for the public sector also to grow. We have seen it in the case of airlines, for example. When we had airlines, Indian Airlines alone, what was the condition? Now that we have competition from a number of airlines, we find a great deal of difference. When we had only Fiat, Standard Herald, and Ambassador, there was one way of dealing with it. But today that there is enough competition, it's so difficult. I mean, it's so difficult for a lower standard, lower quality man or a lower quality institution to shine. So I really do believe that higher education is one area. We have got very good school education, I agree. Up to the 12th standard, we are excellent. Beyond that, we need to go. And that requires a lot more initiative, which we start developing in the private sector. It's a competition. Let's take it. I mean, it's open to the student to go to public institutions or to private institutions. But if they can, I think this can be another major growth area for Kerala.
When K.M. Chandrasekharan was the planning board vice chairman, you had this proposal, and I was the one who opposed it. But now your views are more converged with yours. I mean, stated that way. Now, to have this transformation of Kerala economy, the knowledge economy, we have got to produce knowledge. It's not enough to transmit knowledge to people. And Kerala doesn't produce knowledge. Even universities, no, they're teaching. And therefore, we need to have institutes of higher education, where I think even an industrial house wants to have a lab here, should be welcomed, encouraged. We should set up many more institutes
And universities.
and universities also. But I went to, for example, Asim Premji, spent a week there. Why not Asim Premji here? Of course, they'll set up the, intention to come here. So even private universities are very different times. You have to explore and see what kind of social controls you have. Oh, that's something to be negotiated. School education must be public, in the sense that's where civic formation takes place. Your citizen consciousness is made by the time you pass school. And that's very, very important. And therefore, we will not compromise on that, public education. But higher education is not that. Higher education is about creating a new knowledge. And therefore, I am now of opinion that more private participation is necessary in this. And the modalities of moving on to that should be seriously thought. Did two things.
So we agree.
Hmm?
So we agree.
You are nearing agreement. But two things were done. One was 500 scholarships, postdoctoral, announced, but I think we couldn't get more than 100 people. 1 lakh rupee each. That's quite good, all India. So you get best people to come to do postdoctoral in Kerala. Because it is at the postdoctoral stage that you produce new knowledge, really. Not only your doctoral degree, where you'll be systematizing data and doing. So, Kerala want to be knowledge economy, you'd have the best center for postdoctoral studies. Now, only problem would be that the present teaching scholars within the university system cannot attract that kind of scholars from us. So Kerala needs to devise a method by which expatriate scholar Malayalis in other universities and labs in the world all over, they also become mentors in a different way. You can have UGC as a regulation regarding who can be and so on, but there's nothing to prevent to have a council for each student, 3, 4. So that is one important. Second, say problem with CDS or CES or they are outside the university system. All the students are in the university system. So CDS has a very big tradition and so on, but it has had no impact upon Kerala university system. You don't have, just has very little impact, except students who have passed out now teach the residents. Therefore, these new institutes, for example, genome institutes, which is coming, will be housed within the university, but autonomous from university, totally. that there will be a direct funding and so on, but it will be within the university system. Say Cochin University, they are having a lab of 250 crores rupees from KIFBI, because then that's a world-class lab, the best possible. So it is important that we fast forward our restructuring of education, in which I do not rule out the private involvement, but we'll have to work out a consensus on this with the social control and so on.
But the action has to start.
Yeah.
Good.
That action has to start.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Now we have Anoop and afterwards Kiran raising questions.
So my question is about employment. So all over the world, a capitalist start a business to make profit. And initially it may be labor intensive. And if a new technology comes, they check out the labor and replace them with machines. But in Kerala, for some weird notion, we have this thing of benevolent capitalist. A capitalist in Kerala open a factory to give jobs, not to make profit. This is the narrative that is peddled across the media, that no capitalist is, even a person who is just opening a small shop, say, I'm giving job to 5 people. No one says that I'm making this business to make profit. And this argument of this benevolent capitalist is taking traction everywhere. And the basic fundamental idea of starting a business which is to make profit is somehow brushed down the carpet. So what's your take on this?
All enterprises in the economy have to be competitive. Now you can measure your efficiency with respect to the profit generated. That can be one measure. And that's how private enterprise is measured. Okay, in public enterprise, you have some add-ons, other social concerns been built into that. Now, in Kerala, for example, the restraints have been put on the entrepreneurs regarding technological changes because it may create unemployment. So, mechanization in agriculture, mechanization of traditional industries also have been affected. The net result has been productivity in these sectors have been stagnant, resulting in, say, shifting of the industry itself away from Kerala, the worst case, or in agriculture, the farmers withdrawing from labor-intensive operations and so on. So it is, and then what did the Kerala do? Kerala has been trying to subsidize the minimum wages because productivity is going. So 1/3 the minimum wages in traditional industries paid by government, called income support scheme. It started in 2007. You can't go on like this. You cannot subsidize low productivity and hope to keep afloat. And therefore, if you ask what is knowledge economy, in all these sectors, technological change, there will be no restrictions. You should encourage technological change. You should bring in innovation. But there would be social protection to workers who will be thrown out, which would mean that you create as much as safety nets as possible. Okay, in coir industry, you have modern machinery coming in. Then there are these old people who do not want to shift. Okay, government will have to bear that cost. But okay, you work in your traditional spinning wheel. Government will buy, ensuring a price which will give you minimum wage. But after 3, 4, say another 5 year decade, definitely every one of them would have disappeared from the scene. This is what I call regulated mechanization, because that is a compromise that is being worked out. So state plays that role, but all restrictions on technological changes should be removed, except on environmental grounds, not on employment grounds. So that is now quite well accepted. And you have to accept certain types of jobs are not very suitable to Kerala also. High labor intensive garment industry, which is cheap labor. You don't get workers in Kerala to do that. You have to bring workers from outside to do that. Anyway, that's all left to the private enterprise. They should decide. They should be given the freedom to do that. Do I respond to your question, Anu?
Was this the question you were, I know you were raising a question about the entrepreneur's role in creating jobs, right? And you drew the distinction between them making profit and they're creating jobs and assuming that benevolent role for themselves, which they in reality are not playing. That's the point you tried to raise. Anyway, that's an arguable one. And I don't think, well, I accept it and I'm in favor of it. And therefore, some of the very established on industrial enterprises in Kerala shift to Orissa or Telangana. I appreciate it for the simple reason the person concerned is creating jobs next to or nearer to the workers who are providing service to his enterprise here. So, I mean, I welcome that at an all India level, people setting up enterprises where labor is abundant and available aplenty, rather than, I mean, if they come here and work, I mean, one should not stand in the way. I'm all for creating as many jobs here, but then that benevolent attitude or that presumption of benevolence is misplaced. I am with you. Now, coming back to, sorry, Kiran, sorry, I intervened without a point. Kiran.
So thank you for nicely summarizing the 4 major challenges the economy is facing now, and your kind of diagnosis how to address them. There is a 5th challenge that is not only alarming Kerala but the globe, that is rising inequalities, where Kerala is not an exception. It stands number 1 when we look at consumption inequality. So how do you think Kerala again can stand as a model in addressing the challenge of inequality? I'm asking this question because China is now setting up or coming out to be a model in addressing not only regional income, rural urban divides. So where now they are on the declining curve, especially the research shows that it is through state action. So do you think Kerala can be a model in addressing the challenges of inequality? That is point number 1. The second question, again, I echo with Dr. A.V. Jose, which is with respect to quality jobs. Now we are talking about new economy, knowledge-intensive economy, and they creating jobs. But when we look at the jobs that are created in the new economy, and I'm referring to jobs that are created especially by the gig economy, they are not quality jobs. And India unfortunately ranks at the bottom when we talk about the jobs that are created at the by the gig economy. And again, international economists like Asimoglu, they've been kind of dealing with this problem when innovation and employment comes at the fore. He advocates that states should play a regulatory role in ensuring decent employment or quality employment. So how do you think government can step in at a time when union government is pitching very rigorously for labor reforms?
Yes. Your question about challenge of inequality. The trend, Piketty, all over the world, the present globalization period has been astounding increase in the inequality taking place. And Kerala is no exception to that. In fact, if you take, say, interpersonal inequality or inequality in terms of assets, the RBI household assets and under survey data, or if you take interregional inequality in terms of per capita income of different districts, till end of 1980s, inequality was coming down in Kerala, not increase. That's definite. From 1990s, the things have changed. You find the inequality. All these counts have been widening. This policy impact. So all these proposals I suggested also can lead to greater inequality. That's what you are saying. Now, knowledge economy will be also digital economy, where digital divide will increase inequality those ways. Kerala has been, education has so far been inclusive in nature, and that has allowed social mobility of lower castes and so on. But now you can have now kind of a digital divide, which so now private enterprise is coming in a large way, and therefore you can have, there is no reservation, so affirmative, lack of affirmative action, these people can get excluded. You have now urbanization taking in place at a rapid pace, and therefore rural-urban divide can widen. You have now the major urban metropolis growth of Kochi, and to a smaller extent, no, Kochi is the only metropolis. So you can have, and Kochi is attracting like a growth pool, all resources, everything to Kochi. So regional differences. So this is so you have to keep this in mind. I won't stop this process of growth because I'm afraid of inequality. But two things very clear. One, you must have a rising basic minimum needs program, not stagnant. Okay. So you have a program for eradication of absolute poverty. You ensure a social security for the poor, not just 1,600, maybe 2,000, 3,000 rupees per month, steadily, social security system for them. You have, say, technological change in the traditional sectors, value addition, so that the income improve, all this. So the inequality would not lead to increase in absolute poverty. There would be relative poverty, but not absolute poverty. Absolute poverty should be eradicated. That's policy measure one. Second one is, this can lead to rise in inequality. Therefore, for example, digital divide. So before you started on this, you digitalize all the classrooms in Kerala. You have now care phone, and internet becomes a right of the people. If you don't have money, you are given free. I think every household should be given also a laptop, all the students. How and so on, modus operandi. So, second, the skilling program. There is no discrimination there. You are not asked for fee. Fee comes in only when you get the job. And this is a lifelong skill training. So you make entry at the lower level, still you can be trained to move up. So this is the frame. Second one, gig economy, you're concerned about gig economy. Not only from you, but from the left itself, there are criticism. Gig economy scatters the labor force and increases the exploitation because union strength is reduced. But you have to remember, the recruitment to the Kerala quote unquote gig economy takes place from people who are now outside the labor force itself. They now, all these women, 20 lakh women, now they move into the labor force, not into a big factory. But even this is a big, I would see a positive step that they move outside the domestic realm. Second, it's not the lower end jobs. There won't be takers for that in Kerala. We have this experience already. Offer comes for data entry and so on, that you don't get people very much in Kerala for these rates, just like other jobs. But still, there would be. But you look for higher end jobs. It's not just data. This, therefore, I don't use gig economy. Gig economy is Swiggy. Not that. But even middle level, higher level jobs tend to be decentralized. Now with a new better brand name for Kerala, can we negotiate with people? Okay, I had this experience. Ernst & Young, they said we can provide employment for 3,000 BComs. Here, umpteen BComs all around Kerala. But then they told me they want BComs of like in SB college. So autonomous college, they have got device course. Everybody, I think, learns computer, this, that, etc. That level, they can willing to take. So you skill them so that they're able to get into higher levels of, not the lower level entry. So there are this risk. You be aware there are this risk and respond. Otherwise, you are stuck here. You cannot move. So I think we are reaching the
I think
silence end. But you students should ask more questions.
that's what. Oh, yeah, there. Come on. I mean, so yeah, please.
May I
Okay.
know your name?
My name is Meghna Jaishankar. Yeah, so you were talking about how women and how work from home is going to benefit them in the long run, right? So I was thinking, what about for the disabled section?
What about the?
Disabled section, like in Kerala, we have lots of disabled people who are literate, but they don't have jobs. And so what can we do for them? Because I personally believe that giving them jobs would definitely reflect in our GSDP too. So don't you think something should be done even for them from that perspective?
Yes, Kerala has to, policy-wise, give much more attention to these sectors. Kerala's tradition is more in the rights approach, the sense you organize people for the rights and you make agitation and you get the rights. But there are a whole set of people who are not able to assert the rights, demand the rights. So they tend to get left out. So that has to be addressed. It would include not only disabled, but also, say, elderly. See, Kerala is going to have at least 25% of the population above 60 in another 10 years. In the West, the solution to it is institutional care. Whether you yourself, while working, buy this care for you, or your children buy the care for you. Now, this is impossible, given the present level of economic development. So how do you do that? So what is the alternative? I would say alternative lives in having a community system which takes care of you in your own house, not institution. Palliative, elder clubs, and the younger section of the elderly, anybody before 75, getting them involved in local community work. See, you have to design something like that. And this would apply for differently abled also.
Okay.
That differently abled, okay. Autistic and so on, big problem is that, okay, a child, you take care of them. But every parent, they are worried about what will happen to them once they are no more there.
No, my own brother, he suffers from autism. So that's why that thoughts actually strike for me. Like, what about for the disabled people? So yeah.
So
that's it.
Kerala model, okay, I will just give you, is the community, the bud school. That like, even bud school, there is this challenge. What you do after 18?
Exactly.
So you need to have a rehabilitation centers, rehabilitation program for them. See, it cannot be run by government. It will have to be run by community. How to, or through a semi-payment system for those who can afford. One of my colleagues had a child who was autistic, and now they have a small village created. 10, 15, 20 families, they have put 5 cents plot, built a house, and there is some way of taking care of them. So I think he has also shifted to be with the kid. So this is something that has not been addressed adequately, which will have to be addressed.
I think Meghna raised a very important point, because you're absolutely right. The mentally challenged, including the autistic, unfortunately, they can't vote.
Yeah.
So nobody takes interest.
Yeah.
That's a very major problem the whole country faces. Now, in my capacity as a director in Tata Power, we have started a CSR program, basically aimed at, and we are doing it jointly. There is a center here, if you know, Center for Autism. It's
Okay.
called CADRE, CADRE.
Okay.
We are trying to do it jointly.
Okay.
Basically, the whole point is because we have to reach out to the whole country. And the problems in some metros, you will have some institutions which also are heavily underfunded because nobody can pay that much for the kind of training they require. So what we are trying to do is at least try and reach out across the country to tier 2 towns and other places wherever Tata Power CSR team is there. And we will join with local civil society organizations and we'll start educating them from cadre. That is, we have already put a number of, if you're interested,
Yes, sir.
there is a website, a portal called Autention, AUTENTION.
Okay.
Yeah, which is hosted by Tata Power, which is just focusing on this particular
This
aspect.
particular. Okay. Okay.
So ultimately, the idea is that from here or from other institutions, we will teach somebody, some education is there. It may be an ASHA worker or anybody else. 1 hour, teach them what to do. Then 3 hours, they will sit with the children or with the autistic. And then that training will be imparted. So all over this is just the beginning. We just started on April 2nd, which is World Autism Day. Even jobs now, institutions, unless the institutions, the corporate sector is brought into this in a big way, awareness is created.
Yes.
They are not going to get the proper jobs. And it is possible to train them.
Yes, sir.
Because some of the autistic are brilliant.
Yeah.
Because they think in straight lines,
They think in a different manner.
They think in a straight lines. I mean,
Yeah.
so you can't make them deviate.
Yeah.
And I've seen some institutions some corporate institutions in the country, which for certain areas, like say accounts, they prefer autistic people because they will not deviate.
Yeah.
There is no way in which you can make them corrupt or anything. So they can't think that way. They're straight thinking. So I think we have really not addressed the problem, mainly because they don't vote. They don't constitute a lobby group. That's been a major issue throughout the country.
There is a different art center here. You want to-
No,
you should go.
I will.
Go with that to the arts.
I heard about it.
You should go and see.
Magic Planet. Yeah.
Actually, I presented my research proposal about this. So that time, sir had suggested me to go and visit there. Yeah.
Just visit there.
Visit Carter also.
Yeah, sure. Sure, sir.
And see, now suppose bookmaking, the small jobs. But they are not going to be market competitive.
Hmm.
Therefore, you need to have corporates or financial institutions say buying that book, the price will be 3 times the normal or 5 times the normal. So KFC began to buy from Karakutan, there is one place that, and so they were buying special sanction to buy at 3 or 4 times the price. So systems have to be brought.
Okay, thank you. It was wonderful being
There is
here.
somebody who was stretching your.
There are some online. Please, excuse me. Yes, dear chair, there are people online. If we may also consider them.
Okay, sorry, Joseph.
There are people online. If they have any questions, they can ask.
Since you run this show from your office, let me ask you, how long can we go?
No, I don't. This is, I think, up to 1 o'clock, we should conclude, I suppose.
Okay, it's only another 5 minutes.
5 minutes. If anybody from the online participants.
Let me pass the baton, request Bipasha, and then afterwards, if there are people online, subject to the availability of time.
Yes,
we'll go.
we'll be taking
Raise your hand.
rapid fire, question answer.
So my question would be in the lines of what Meghna had asked, but highlighting the point where you mentioned how work from home would be benefiting women. So I wanted your viewpoint on the fact that what if it reinforces the division of private sphere and the public sphere, where private sphere women are expected to stay at home, and the public sphere where men work outside home. And also recently I read an article where maternity leave, when women take maternity leave, it's difficult for them to get back into the whole active labor force. So what would your opinion be on that? Thank you.
And therefore, it will not be just work from home. There will be an option to work from near home. And the local governments are supposed to make she lodges, work lodges, so that, and with all arrangements, internet connectivity and so on. So they're encouraged to work near home. They wouldn't have to come to Techno Park or somewhere. So we may not encourage working from home. They have to get out of home. That's my response to you. So, but it means creating that much space for them to work outside. But it's possible. It's possible. Yes.
So I would like to add to this point. I would like to add to this point. That is when women, when they are working in the work from home itself, there is a chance that they are working double shifts. Like there will be people inside the home, they have to take care of them. They'll have to do the office work alone. And again, as Bipasha has mentioned, it is reinforcing what is already was working. Like women are supposed to be inside the home. So isn't that again an issue that after this COVID and all, after even if we are continuing this process of this process of the women staying inside the home, isn't that a concern too?
It's does not address directly the double burden of women. They get that job, but they still continue to do the job will have to do the job in the house. But it's still a step forward from having only domestic work. Kerala faces this big question: why, despite the better conditions of women, status of women are lower, say as bad as any other state? One important reason is women's economic participation, visual participation is very, very low. It reinforces stereotype notion about contribution of women in the economy. Second, along with this, you have to have a major campaign for smart kitchen and common kitchen. You know what is common kitchen? Yeah? No. Common kitchen is similar pattern, dozen houses, 2 dozen houses. Okay, they assign cooking to a house for them, which is an income. But every day morning by 8 or 9, tiffin carrier, all the food is brought, delivered at home, so that women don't have to work only on Sunday. Second, Kerala government also has a program which has not taken off, smart kitchen. Okay, a lot of fun was made, but I think it's a very important thing that you have a little bit of mechanization in the household duties. So I think common kitchen would be much better. Now there are a dozen common kitchens in Kerala. Well, it's not much, but still, I think we have to move in those directions. Yes, online.
Joseph, would you like to read out the questions?
Now, there is nothing on the chat box, but I just, if anyone would like, may please raise your hand and ask the question.
ജോസഫിന്റെ മാസ്ക് മാറ്റിക്കളാം. ഞങ്ങൾ അവിടെ ഞങ്ങൾ ഇവിടെ ഇരിക്കണം.
Sorry. Yeah, I think there is no chat. There's nothing on the chat box.
There's nothing on the chat box. So shall we wrap up the session? Let me say it was a pleasure being here to witness. No. I think there is going to be a vote of thanks. Is there anyone else? No, there will be a vote of thanks after this, being part of an interesting, stimulating debate on the limits and scope of the Kerala experience with development. And nobody could have brought it to your attention better than these two pioneers, Sri K.M. Chandrasekharan and Dr. Thomas Isaac. The latter's central message has been the state can go a long way, facilitating, regulating, and redistributing in the functioning of markets. And the regulation is not something which is to prevent you from working, but to secure, protect, and realize the rights of all people in the world of work. And the institutions suited to that, for that, can be created at the instance of the state. This is the central message he has been advancing during the period here and the economy of the state. And I'm glad that we had a chance to go over the ground, and it was a very fascinating experience. Now let me invite Dr. Paroma Chakravarti to say the vote of thanks, and that's it.
Thank you, sir. Respected Chair, Dr. A.V. Jose, respected our Chief Guest, Sri K.M. Chandrasekhar, Honorable former Cabinet Secretary, Government of India, and former Vice Chairman, Kerala State Planning Board, respected Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, former Finance Minister and Distinguished Professor of GIFT, Professor K.J. Joseph, Director GIFT, Professor D. Narayana, Professor Vijay Mohan Pillai. Good afternoon, everyone. and my faculties, very good afternoon, and everyone who's present online and who's present here. It is my privilege to extend to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of the Institute, the entire GIFT community. We would like to extend our gratitude to our chief guest, Shri K.M. Chandrasekhar, and our chair, Professor T.M. Thomas Isaac, for sparing their valuable time for us and gracing this event. We are enlightened by your discussion, and it was really wonderful to hear from Professor Thomas Isaac on his journey about his as an academician and as a policymaker. And it was really wonderful to hear from you. And we would also, okay, and of course, I should also tell about the book. We are honored to hear from you about the new book on Kerala, Another Possible World. And we are very much excited to read it. And I'm sure it will be immensely beneficial for all the researchers who are working on the area of public policy and development related issues. And especially in the era of globalization, this book will also be beneficial for people like me who are not from the state like Kerala, and it will enrich the knowledge about the Kerala economy. And we are also looking forward from you, like we're hoping to see more books, like more on this, like which will enlighten our understanding on Kerala economy and about the policy making. And once again, I would like to thank every one of you on behalf of GIFT, on behalf of the entire GIFT community. Thank you.
Anita, would you like to make an announcement about